Hi, everybody. I'm Bryan Mudd, a fan of South Plains politics. Well, here's your talking points for this week. Changes in venue, changes in convention format, and a change of leadership for the state Republican Party. A look at what's next from someone who's a part of that. And business owners are hoping for no more changes to the restrictions that may be good for your health, but lousy for their bottom line and our economy.
From the studios of KAMC Television in Lubbock, your local election headquarters. This is Talking Points with Bryan Mudd.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Also this week, the bearer of bad news. I guess these days you can probably classify me as one of those folks. I'd rather not be that person, trust me. But sometimes, as much as we hate it, we need to hear when things are not so rosy so we can all prepare accordingly. Even though their work doesn't officially start until January, state lawmakers got their bad news this week that in a time when we need to focus on medical concerns and schools and supporting businesses, they're not going to have as much money to spend on those things or anything else. Blame COVID, blame low oil revenues, but please don't blame the messenger. KAMC's Maggie Glenn.
Every 2 years after the Texas legislative session concludes, the state comptroller releases a report, the certification revenue estimate, letting lawmakers know how much they can spend over the next 2 years. This report can change with an unexpected impact to the economy. The pandemic is doing just that.
We're trying to look at these data points not just here, not just in the United States, but literally at what's happening around the world.
The original estimate in 2019 gave the legislature $121 billion to spend. That number has now fallen to $110 billion, and the comptroller projects a $4.6 billion deficit at the end of next year, much of that traced to a dip in consumer spending. Since April, sales tax collections have dropped significantly compared to the same time in 2019, with the largest drop happening in May. Hotel, bar, and car sales tax revenue were some of the businesses hit hardest by the pandemic. Now, these estimates don't take into account any more federal funding that might be on the way or the governor's mandate that state agencies reduce their spending by 5%. Also, the estimate assumes there won't be another complete shutdown. And the comptroller admits it's hard to predict what will happen next.
We've seen people's lack of spending and economic activity is more out of concern than it is about government-mandated shutdowns. And so, you know, it's really about the psyche of individuals, and that's just really too hard for us to read right now.
In Austin, Maggie Glenn, KAMC News.
All right, Maggie, thank you so much. We're pleased, as always, to bring in Lubbock Representative Dustin Burrows now to talk more about the situation. Of course, the next legislative session isn't until January, but what, if anything, is being done right now at the committee levels to start thinking about those budget cuts that are out there and who will have to do with a little bit less moving forward?
Yeah, Bryan, thank you for having me on. Earlier this week, the Legislative Budget Board met. Of course, I'm on that, and the comptroller gave his revised revenue estimate. And you know, the last time he did this was October, and a lot's changed since October. We're down 11% on what our projections are, which means we have about a $4.5 billion shortfall. So the first thing that we're doing is we asked every state agency to look around, and well, most state agencies, and come up with a 5% cut, so that when we're going into next session, it's not nearly as hard to balance the budget as we need.
Sure. I had some people ask, too, does this shortfall affect any current projects for which money had already been set aside in the last legislative session?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have asked them to go through and prioritize where they can actually make those cuts so that we finish out the calendar year. We can put those savings into the general revenue fund and make sure that it's not as difficult to make those things meet. Some of the bigger projects are still going forward, but there's a lot of things that we're hoping that can be put on pause, you know, especially that they're discretionary. Oh,
sure. Shortfalls in the billions, I know to a lot of folks, sounds dire up front, but there is, of course, the rainy day fund as well. Should that be used here? How should that be used here?
Yeah, let me tell you, our first commitment, and I can guarantee you, we're not going to raise taxes. And so when you look at that, you have to look at other things, which is budget cuts. Of course, the state has a rainy day fund. Our projections are by the end of the next biennium, we'll have about $8.1 billion in that. We can't spend all of that money because we need to keep our credit rating up, but that's available. You look at our local taxing entities. I know school districts have $15 billion in their reserves across the entire state. The Lieutenant Governor told us that at the LBB meeting as well. And so we have those funds set aside in case we need them, so we don't actually have to raise taxes when people can afford it the least.
Well, and you mentioned the schools, you know, if school districts are affected by anything here, I know you've talked about alternative methods for paying for maintenance and operation costs for schools that would also help on people's property taxes. Would those ideas still be doable in this wobbly Texas economy and with the potential budget problems?
I hope so, right? I mean, it's a discussion that we had last session. It's a discussion that, you know, we've been tasked to look at it in the interim. I mean, you know, admittedly, we may have so much on our plate that it's difficult, you know, to get to, but I think it's important, and I think we can still do it. And I think there's some good ideas out there that perhaps, you know, could replace or, you know, at least significantly reduce our dependence on property taxes to fund school maintenance operation. We had that big, long discussion, and I personally continue to want to have it.
The mayor said on this program last week that they understand businesses are hurting as well. They may be taking another look at the tax rate this fall at the local level while delaying a potential infrastructure bond there as well. You think those types of things are good ideas for the localities to start looking at?
I don't care where you are, you know, if you're at the city level, the school level, the county level, state or federal, Texans are hurting. Businesses are hurting. I mean, this is the opportunity to, you don't want to raise taxes. In fact, if you can, you want to try to lower them to give people relief so that we can come out of this economic downturn. And so I would encourage anyone to look for not only, you know, baseline neutral taxes, but, you know, if they can give tax relief, I think that's a great thing as well.
Yeah, Senator Perry said he believes a special session may be needed now to start to hold some hearings, talk about some of the decisions being made by the governor through all of this. So what's your thoughts on that and going back to Austin early to start looking at these things?
So look, my sentiments on that when it looks at, you know, the emergency powers that have been used to close down businesses and do other things, I've disagreed with those that they're actually there, whether that's at the local level or on up. You know, the sooner that we start looking at those things, the better, whether that's in a special session or, you know, we just have ad hoc committees that actually meet and discuss what alternatives we want to find. But I think all of us who care about liberties and not wanting to see businesses closed again, it's never too early to have that conversation.
Sure. You know, we talked about some of the things going on with the mayor as well. You know, there was a Quinnipiac poll that came out that shows 68% of Texas voters thought that local officials should have the authority to do things like issue stay-at-home orders if they need to. The governor said he's trying to make decisions in a hurry. Should local governments be able to make more decisions like that in this under this umbrella of COVID as we sit here today, based on their own situation?
Look, we want to right-size who's actually making the decisions, but when we talk about the 11% decrease that we've seen from October to 2019 until today, there's no doubt a lot of that has to do with the closing of businesses. And I would argue that, you know, some of it may have helped solve some of the problems out there, but it's done a lot of damage to our economy, you know, in the long run. So when we allow powers like that, which to me are really, you know, they're pretty big powers. I'm not real comfortable with hardly anybody having the power just to arbitrarily shut down somebody's business.
Sure. Yeah, and a lot of people are dealing with that now, and a lot of those businesses won't be coming back. The kids will be coming back to schools in Texas in some form or another. LISD, Friendship, and places like that are talking about making it back more or less on time. Your thoughts on schools reopening, some of the safety procedures they're talking about, and your thoughts on the TEA and what they're coming up with for these school districts?
Yeah, you know, I've actually had the opportunity to talk to some of the superintendents, and Brian, I cannot say enough good things about our local superintendents. You know, I think they do a great job. I think that they respect and try to take into account a really, really difficult, challenging situation. I also think they're just really good people, and I trust them to make good decisions. When you talk about local decision making, I'm glad that there's some flexibility that continues to be given to our local superintendents, because I have a lot of confidence in them, and what I've seen right now, I am very impressed with the decisions they continue to make.
And are you comfortable with the emergency management that's coming out of Austin these days and getting PPE to hospitals and not just making sure that schools are okay, but our medical personnel are doing all right as well?
Look, we're doing a better job. There's no doubt. When this first hit, that was one of the things that we were talking about all the time, that we had PPE shortages. I know there's still shortages out there, but I do think that the state has continued to try to be smart in its purchasing power, trying to utilize the entire thing, and we're doing a better job getting it distributed where it needs to go.
Lubbock Representative Dustin Burrows still working, even though the legislature won't be back for a few months yet. Be safe. We will talk to you soon, my friend.
Thanks, Brian. Appreciate it.